So hey guys, we're gonna do fabric anatomy now. All right, so we're just gonna look at some of the terminology of our fabric that we may or may not know. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and start here. So the first thing that we may know, of course, is the raw edge of our fabric, right? So the raw edge, of course, is the edge that you and I take the scissors, of course, and we cut through, right? So that's the raw edge. So the raw edge, sometimes it could be straight, it could be, you know, all over the place, it could be very nice and smooth. So it all depends. The raw edge is the raw edge, and we have the raw edge here, and of course we have it down here as well. Okay. Okay, so next thing we're gonna look at now is the salve edge. So the salve edge now is not the raw edge, it's the edge that actually come from the factory itself. So this actually come from the manufacturer. So the manufacturer edge of the fabric, this edge here, very, very important in sewing, like super, super important in sewing. It's actually called the salve edge, okay? So that's the salve edge here. So also, I'm gonna also show you another piece of fabric that I have here, just briefly. And I'm not gonna fully talk about this one. This one is okay for me. So this is also the salvage in the fabric, as we can see here, the salvage here. Sometimes you could tell the difference with the salvage from the regular edge, of course, from the raw edge. All right, so one thing I want to let you know something about the salvage here. Sometimes you would see what it is here. So on this salvage here, which is 100% cotton. So you know you're getting genuine 100% cotton right here. Just making sure you can see that here. Also, it tells you here 1, 2, it tells you up to 12. There's different numbers here that actually, all these numbers here and the colors here is what combine to make the colors of this fabric. Okay, so not all fabric have that. So I show you this one in particular because this one of course don't have it, but this one has all the different numbers. So we could see we have this brown here. This brown actually make up the colors of the fabric. We have this blue, this pink, this and all these colors here. All these colors here make up to put this fabric together. Okay, so that's the salvage here. So let me put it aside. And again, the salvage, it also tells you the name of the fabric. Like this one, it has heritage, you have some name here. You would actually see the name of the fabric. You will see a lot of information on the salvage that you would distinct that is the salvage. And the salvage is so important in sewing, guys. Okay, awesome. Next thing we're gonna look at now is, now there is yarn in fabric. So the thread, there's the lengthwise thread and the crosswise thread is called yarn. Now on the fabric we call it grain. So lengthwise grain. So the lengthwise grain go this way, okay? Lengthwise grain, and then we have the crosswise grain go this way. The lengthwise grain is always the strongest grain of the fabric. So whether you're dealing with a woven fabric, and I forgot to let you guys know this is a woven fabric, not a knit fabric. So a woven fabric has grain line. Knit fabric mostly is the small, like jersey material, more stretchy material. So this year we're looking at the woven fabric only in this tutorial. Okay, so this is the lengthwise grain with the thread run from the thread run parallel. So basically it's the lengthwise grain, and then this is the crosswise grain with a thread run the other direction in the fabric itself. And if you go ahead and you look at your fabric and you pull out a thread, you would see some thread go this way. Then if you go this way, you would actually see, if you do have to look at the thread itself, you would see some of the thread go up and down and left to right. So that's called the lengthwise grain and the crosswise grain. Okay, now I'm also, all right, so just so we're good, so I'm gonna also tell you here, so of course in terminology on fabric you always say right sides to right sides. So this would be the right side of the fabric. So I'm just putting it here because you know my things are big here. So this is the right sides of the fabric here. So we have right sides of the fabric. And of course we have the wrong sides of the fabric. So if you hear me say put right sides to right side, you know it's the right side you're putting on. That's the fabric, the side that you could actually see. And then the wrong side of the fabric, of course, which is a no-brainer, is the inside of the fabric. All right, so if you hear I said put right sides and wrong sides touching, then you know right side as the outside, wrong side is the inside. Okay, so right side and wrong side. So let me just put that here. I'm gonna kind of leave it here so we have it here. Okay. All right, to continue here now, we also have grain line. So I don't know if you ever seen this on your pattern piece, if you ever buy a pattern, or if you have the luxury of making patterns from our classes. We have our grain line, we have our cotton fold. So let me just introduce you to this right now. So this is my grain line. So your grain line now, we have the lengthwise grain. So remember, say we have the lengthwise grain. This would be the lengthwise grain line going this way. So this direction, up and down. And then the crosswise grain would go, of course, across. So the crosswise grain here, and you will see this grain more to on your pattern piece if you make the pattern or if you drop your own pattern itself, okay? All right. Okay, so next thing we're gonna look at now is the fold of your fabric. So this part, of course, is the fold of your fabric, and I'm just gonna slide it with here. So the fold of your fabric is very important again, because sometimes your pattern piece may say, put your fabric on the fold, right? So this is the fold sign on the on your pattern piece itself. Example, for instance. So this is my fold sign here. So this is from what I teach in my advanced class. So we teach the fold, and your fold have to go identical on the fold of the fabric. So let me just go ahead and rest this here, the fold of the fabric. So that would be the fold. So this would be the symbol on your pattern, but on the fabric anatomy, of course, this is your fold, right? So I'm just gonna put it under here. This is your lengthwise grain. So this would be on your pattern to determine that this is my lengthwise grain. This is your crosswise grain here. So the thread go this way. And this would be your symbol again for your grain, your crosswise grain. Of course, we have our raw edge. Then we have our salve edge. We have our right side of the fabric. And of course, we have the wrong side of the fabric. Okay? All right. So lastly, what I want to teach you now here, I'm just going to take all this out here for now. And I'm going to show you briefly the bias, okay? So you ever heard of bias? So bias itself, let's say I'm working with a woven fabric and I want stretch. You would put your fabric on a 45 degrees angle, right? And that's where you get the maximum amount of stretch itself, okay? Let's say you're working with a woven fabric and it's not a knit fabric. You wanna make sure you put your fabric on a 45 degrees angle, and that would be your bias angle here according to the pattern or according to the dress you're making and stuff like that. Okay, all right, so let's just go over briefly again. So with the bias, we understand this is the bias. Just briefly, one more time again. Then we know we have the wrong side of the fabric. So I'm just gonna put it, of course, here. The wrong side of the fabric, right? We have our lengthwise grain. So we'll up and down, and then this is our grain line itself for our lengthwise. Then we have our, so I'm just gonna pull it all the way I have it here. We have our crosswise grain, so it go perpendicular. So this go up and down, and then this go across like this, okay? That's the thread in the actual fabric itself, okay? And then we have our grain line for our crosswise grain. Then we have our fold here, and we have to follow our fold bracket on our pattern piece, right? Then we have our raw edge, and we know this is the raw edge up here. Then we have our salve edge, so this is our salve edge here, the manufacturer edge from the fabric, right? This is the right side of our garment itself. And of course, this is our bias, which we did earlier, okay? All right, so if we have our pattern piece now, and the pattern piece say, ensure that your pattern is on a fold, we wanna make sure it's identical on the fold of the fabric, okay? And let's say we have a pattern piece with a grain line, we wanna make sure it's parallel to the salvage of the fabric itself. All right, so that's it. We're gonna look for fabric. This is just an overview itself. Now, if you, of course, wanna go deeper, we could definitely talk more, but this is the basic fabric anatomy that is need to know in your sewing and fashion journey.